Our theme was tools and methods that combine multiple kinds of data in order to understand the bigger picture. And even though theme 1 justifiably said you need the scope, nevertheless, you often need multiple kinds of data to see the bigger picture, even though per kind of data maybe a little bit less. But I will first try to describe the process in which these different types of data are interlinked, and then Frank will comment on each of these after this process description. So after you've done some pre-testing work to get your minimal prototype ready, etc., there will be two loops going on. One is the smaller loop, which takes about a week, can be a day, but maybe a week, etc. And there's a longer loop, which is a redesigned loop, which can be a little bit longer. But in the smaller loop, you will typically have, in many studies, automatic logging of data going on, because you may want to validate some of your interview data later, and you may want to be informed in your interviews about the data. And you will have occasional diaries or experience samples going on, typically less than the automatic logging, but that will also be going on. People actually giving their input, actually voicing their opinions or marking some things. And then slightly less, you will have some periods of observation going on, maybe once per week, maybe even less. A period where a researcher can actually see what's going on. And if you combine those three sources of data, you can then, after doing a short analysis, maybe that's where you need the box, you can have your interview informed by that kind of data. So you can figure out what it is more that you need to understand about the bigger picture, not only by asking, but also by asking the specific things about the specific patterns that you see. After this interview, you may have another week, or another day, and another day, having that going on. And after some period of time, you will end up having to do a more thorough analysis of all that data, and then you have to inform the design team to redesign the application, to improve it, or to scrap it altogether. And now for the individual pieces.
So we looked at kind of each of these different methods that could be put together in a large research process, and tried to identify, what some of the tools that could help that particular area would be. So we started looking at logging and observation. And one of the problems when trying to do observation of mobile users is you can't really see what's on their screen. You don't want to be up in their face, because then they're not going to be doing what they would normally do. So you're usually at some distance. And we thought it would be really nice if there was a tool that could just mimic the screen of the mobile device on a researcher's device or laptop. So the researcher could be seeing what the user is doing, while being, several meters away, or even kind of farther away, just observing the interaction that's going on. And that would all help better contextualize what's going on with the user that's using the application. Then looking at the diary information, we thought it would be really nice if there was an automated system that could remind users who weren't sending in a diary. So the big problem with that is compliance. People actually getting back to you and giving you the diary information you want. So tied into some sort of automated voicemail system, people who didn't call in today get a text message or something, reminding them to call in. Then going on to the synthesis of data, you're collecting all these logs, you're collecting all this diary information, but often they aren't correlated. So having a tool that could take a bunch of voicemail that came in, or a bunch of responses from ESM data, and correlate those with the logs. So when a user said, oh, yesterday when I was in the park and I opened it up and saw this or that, you could actually see the click stream that goes along with that, and view those together. Then actually going on to the interview, we thought that it would be really nice if you could easily transcribe the interview that you had, and also correlate that back to the log data. So when you're talking about a specific instance of interaction, not only will you get the participant quotes, but you'll get the log data that came in, you'll get the voicemail that came in related to that. So you have this nice little bundle of everything that came in related to that specific case of interaction. Going on to doing the analysis, often, if you've got a lot of qualitative data, you end up with a lot of post-its. And you end up organizing all of those post-its in some way, but it's very hard for researchers then to capture all of that. And especially if they want to document it in a report, to capture that hierarchy of the affinity analysis. So what we really want, and I've wanted this for a really long time, is a way to take a picture of a wall like that, well, something that's maybe a little more hierarchical, like an analysis would be, and have it automatically generate a bulleted list out of that, where you have the top level themes and the themes under that, and then all the participant data, and you can just have that in a report with all of that data from photos you take of the wall. And I really, really want that. So that's basically just sort of looking at each of these sub-methods that pull into the process and the tools that we think could really help move that along in a much easier way. Any questions? Dean?
One question about this, the data and the interview coming together. I guess just to clarify, was the idea that when you're in the interview and viewing some kind of a visualization with the participant of their own behavior, that then that visualization would be annotated with the interview itself or somehow connected to that? Is that the idea?
You might be viewing a visualization with them, and that would be cool if all that gets annotated together. Or you might just, in your interview script, have particular cases of interaction that you flagged that you want to talk about. So now it's like, I'm talking about this specific interaction, which may not be visualized. It might just be, a snippet from their voicemail that you jotted down or something. But be able to correlate that back to the actual voicemail and the log. Because then when you come through and you're doing the affinity analysis and you see the quote that you got out of the interview, you could actually jump to the log, you could jump to the voicemail and get all of that related information, which is really hard to do today.
Another idea, just when you're talking about following behind the participant and mirroring the display, it seems like there's some tools that do that. One thing that I've experienced shadowing participants is that even if you have something like that, or if you have other information you're looking at, it can be hard to allocate your own visual attention as a researcher between watching the participant, what they're physically doing, and what they may be doing on the device. So I was thinking if there could be some multimodal notifications that are not in the same mode that the participant is experiencing them, but if I could be hearing a ding every time their screen changes, then I can look back down at the screen and see what they've just done.
All right.
Do you know that, sorry, regarding taking the photo and getting everything organized and putting a list,
Yeah.
there are two tools that don't necessarily allow you to take the picture, but if you put your data in them, then you can do pretty much that. You can distribute and clustering as you like it, and then you can make lists and stuff.
But you have to do that all on the computer. You can't do that on a wall.
You
right?
cannot do that on paper, yes,
Right.
you have to do it on...
So when we do our affinity analysis, we often have 1,500, 2,000 notes. And you can't do that on a computer. You don't have the resolution to have any kind of knowledge of everything else that's up there or the hierarchy. And we've tried doing this many different ways, and the wall is the only way we can do it. We take up floor to ceiling for 50 feet to do one of these, and it takes several people for a week or two to get through some of the bigger ones.